Hey guys, what's up? Jubitaz back with a new video, where today we're going to look at the most obscure character out of the 5 main Uchiha, that being Shisui, who's actually a fan favorite and is surprisingly very popular despite having a very limited appearance in canon material. I mean, the most screen time that Shisui gets is in the Naruto game special CGI animations, and while he does get some pretty sick intros, don't get me wrong, it still doesn't warrant all the popularity and him getting the number 4 position in the Naruto popularity poll. Though I suppose the one reason he got such a high rank was because people wanted to see more of Shisui of the body flicker. I myself made a video about Shisui long ago, but I will admit that it was kind of a pointless video that didn't really offer anything new. However, since my forte has always been deeper look or analysis videos about certain characters, I think I've come up with the perfect video idea for Shisui. That being, what if he didn't die or kill himself? How would he have dealt with the whole Uchiha massacre situation? Would he have helped Itachi slaughter the Uchiha clan? Or would he have found another way to avert it? Would he have killed Danzo considering what he did to him? Well, those are the types of questions I'm here to answer today. And before we begin, you know the drill, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and otherwise, let's get to it. First off, let's address the elephant in the room. It's not like Shisui wasn't there to witness the tension between the Uchiha clan and the Leaf Village, and it's not like he didn't try to defuse the situation already. We know that Shisui was one of the few Uchiha that had a dual loyalty to his clan and to his village. And even his grandfather Kagami Uchiha was not only a believer of the Will of Fire that worked closely under the second Hokage, but Kagami was also the teammate of the would-be third Hokage and the would-be detestable elders Koharu, Homura, and Danzo. The latter of which, Danzo, even praised Kagami in the anime and said that he'd been saved numerous times in the past thanks to Kagami's visual jutsu. Kagami's loyalty to the village was passed down to Shisui, which is why Shisui wanted to avert internal conflict in Konoha at any cost. He had a plan and he had the perfect jutsu to execute that plan. He was going to use his Mangekyo Sharingan ability, the Kodo Amatsukami, which was subtle mind control that no one caught whim of, and he was going to use it on Fugaku in order to change his mind about the coup d'etat. However, we all know how that turned out. Danzo just couldn't allow for a scenario where the Uchiha clan was spared. He was also a greedy monster and wanted the power of Shisui's Mangekyo Sharingan for himself, so he turned on him and with the help of his root agency plotted an ambush. And it was stated in the Itachi novel that one of the Aburame that was a member of the Foundation poisoned Shisui so that Danzo could steal one of his eyes, and Shisui barely escaped with the remaining eye so that Danzo didn't have both his Mangekyo. You see, that was the problem with Shisui. He was stated by Itachi to have similar ideals to Naruto. So in other words, he was too naive and too idealistic. Unlike Itachi, who was more of a utilitarian that was ready to make tough decisions when need be. That's why the bad actor in Danzo chose to kill him and use Itachi to carry out his plans. He knew that Itachi would still hold the overall stability of the Leaf Village above all else, and that his status as one of the elders of Konoha would grant him immunity from Itachi. Itachi wouldn't escalate things and will have to bite his lip down. Shisui's naive idealism would have him suffer the same fate as Yahiko, devoured by a brutal political conspiracy. One interesting thing that I must point out is that Itachi himself believed that had Shisui been alive during the massacre, he would have protected the clan till the end, even if it were from Itachi himself, which is a belief that Itachi expressed in his Midnight novel. And it's pretty interesting since it's Shisui himself that placed Itachi in that position. When Shisui met Itachi at the river and told him what Danzo did, he told Itachi to find a way to protect the village and the clan's name. He didn't say the clan itself. And to add on top of that, he killed himself in order for Itachi to awaken his Mangekyo Sharingan. And the Mangekyo can exacerbate one's negative emotions, which is what widened the rift between Itachi and his clan, and made him antagonize them more, especially when Itachi was suspected by Inabi, Tekka, and Yashiro, and accused to have played a part in Shisui's suicide. Add on top of that Danzo and his bad faith influence on the Leaf Elders, and I don't see how Shisui saw any possible outcome than the wholesale slaughter of the Uchiha clan. So I don't understand why the novel frames it like Shisui would have been fully opposed to the massacre. Maybe what Itachi was thinking is that Shisui was simply too idealistic to allow for the massacre of his clan, even if he was loyal to his village, and even if he did believe that the Uchiha coup d'etat would have caused a civil war and that will leave the Leaf Village vulnerable to invasions from the neighboring lands. Maybe Shisui would have went to Fugaku and the Uchiha higher-ups and pled with them not to revolt or take any drastic decisions. And maybe he himself could have acted as the mediator between them and the third Hokage, since the third Hokage was a close associate of his grandfather and was the only one of the elders willing to make concessions or negotiate with the clan. That is, of course, if you believe this interpretation of things, and don't believe that Hiruzen had the same views as the rest of the elders, saw the Uchiha clan as a nuisance, and kept intentionally stalling on the negotiations because he wanted to maintain a good image but pushed everything onto Danzo because he couldn't make any tough decisions. Which is the implication that the novel makes about Hiruzen, though the anime has a different interpretation. What's interesting is that, despite Itachi being the one that was officially a double agent for both the Uchiha and the Leaf, one could say that it was actually Shisui that was more of a double agent, or held a dual loyalty. I mean, Shisui also reported directly under the third Hokage, and unlike Itachi, Shisui did actually have a role in one of the Uchiha clan's blueprints of the staged uprising. They wanted Shisui to teleport into the Hokage's mansion and kidnap him at night. The Uchiha believed that Shisui was very devoted to the clan and didn't know about his dual loyalty, which is why they were shocked that he would take his own life. And that's also why they suspected Itachi, considering that they also instructed Shisui to keep an eye on Itachi after Itachi started acting distant when he became an Anbu and worked directly under the Hokage. Shisui's last attempt at dissuading the clan from staging the coup came from the form of the suicide note he left, but it'll take more than just some note to change the clan's mind at this point. So, now we arrive to that point in the video. What would Shisui have done realistically had he remained alive? Well, truth be told, I don't think there's much that he could have done, except for maybe try to use his remaining eye to enact his original plans and manipulate Fugaku. The truth is that the reason Shisui most likely didn't do that and didn't realistically go back to his clan was because the situation between the Uchiha and the clan was already very tense, and if he were to come back with a missing eye and the Uchiha were to learn about the Danzo encounter, first off, they may consider Shisui a traitor for wanting to use the visual jutsu on the clan, and second off, they'd probably launch the coup immediately given the heinous act committed by Danzo. Shisui likely did not want to provoke the clan. Now, the more reasonable question would be, why didn't Shisui go to the third Hokage afterwards? And this is the type of question that strengthens the idea that Hiruzen was incompetent or more complicit in the Uchiha massacre than the narrative would want you to believe. Since Shisui should have been able to confide in the Hokage, especially since Hiruzen approved of Shisui's plan to use Koro Amatsukami to prevent the massacre. The only valid excuse I heard is that the poison Shisui was inflicted with was so severe that he didn't have a lot of time left after he escaped, so all he could do was give Itachi his eye and throw himself into the river. But if that wasn't the case, in the hypothetical that he remains alive and goes to Hiruzen and reports back about Danzo's actions, could that solve the conflict between the Uchiha and the village? Hiruzen kept saying that he wanted to negotiate, so if he was dead on the money, would he use that opportunity to try to mend the bridge with the Uchiha? Because realistically, Shisui had a direct order from the Hokage, so Danzo interfering could be seen as treason. So if Hiruzen had the integrity and were to punish Danzo, then this could be a chance to build trust between the Uchiha clan and the Leaf Village. Maybe this could be Danzo's big opportunity to be the bridge for peace, if he were sacrificed and blamed so that the clan and the village could turn a new page. This would be a good faith gesture on Konoha's part, and with Shisui as the negotiator, then maybe he could have appealed to some of the Uchiha, especially with Itachi on his side. I believe that they could have gotten to Fugaku, since he did want to avoid a violent revolution if possible, and I believe that Shisui would have served as a much better negotiator since he was impartial and actually cared for both sides, unlike Itachi, who heavily favored the village over the clan. Now, it's also possible that banishing or executing Danzo isn't enough, as the conflict has been brewing for decades, but then it could just result in an Uchiha civil war with the Konoha loyalist Uchiha on one side and the Uchiha conspirators on the other side. And maybe if the Konoha loyal Uchiha win, then the Konoha loyal Itachi could eventually become the Hokage, and the long-strained relationship between the Leaf and the Uchiha could finally get fixed. Though of course I may be giving Hiruzen too much credit by assuming that he would go as far as executing or even punishing Danzo at all if Shisui were to report the ambush back to him. I mean, if we were to look at the Kakashi Anbu filler arc in the anime, there's even a scene where Danzo plots out Hiruzen's execution and Hiruzen pardons him for it. And even Danzo himself calls Hiruzen a naive fool for doing so. So if we were to take anime Hiruzen, then yes, it's possible he wouldn't do anything if Shisui tells him about Danzo's attempts and the thievery of his Sharingan. Then there really wouldn't be anything that Shisui could do. Maybe he'd just plead for both sides to cooperate until the final minute. Though I believe that this is where the hypothetical ends. I mean, realistically, in canon, Shisui chose to end his life because his attempts to resolve the conflict in a peaceful manner failed, and he didn't see what he could do in such a situation, so he put all his faith into Itachi and gifted Itachi the Mangekyo by killing himself. Of course, if you take the narrative implication that he was going to die regardless because of the poison, then it makes his decision to commit suicide more reasonable. You see, I struggled to understand why Shisui was so popular at first, but I understand it a bit more now. Shisui is kind of like Itachi, but he's actually much more nuanced and understanding in his thinking. If we were to look at that one episode where Shisui takes the young Itachi with him on a tracking mission, he told Itachi that he may have been too smart for his own good, that he didn't even think from the perspective of someone that wasn't a genius. That sometimes in order to track someone, you need to be able to put yourself in his shoes in order to determine his next moves. That's why Shisui was said to be a lot more loyal and understanding to his clan, because he considered their perspective, so he was more empathetic to their grievances, just like Naruto. Shisui is also the one that taught Itachi that true shinobi were the nameless ones that protected everyone from the shadows. But he still didn't agree with Danzo and the Foundation because he saw them as maintaining order through ruthless and unethical methods. That they didn't really enforce true peace, but just a selfish version of peace on their own terms. And that's why Danzo needed Shisui out of the picture. Even if you would claim that they both shared the same goal, Shisui wasn't going to compromise his beliefs to serve his own self-interests. And it's almost his righteousness that got him targeted, just like Yahiko. So I believe that Shisui is a lot more complex than I gave him credit for in the beginning, and it's just a shame how underutilized he is. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get more of those one-shots by Kishimoto, but for now, this has been my Shisui analysis video. Make sure to check out my other character analyses. The new Sasuke was right is a good one, for example. And other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.